All right, and welcome to Pandemic. No. All right. I gotta write this down.
Just think of Dustin Hoffman, Kevin Spacey.
All right, and welcome to Outbreak Breakout Pandemic Podcast. My name is Keith, here once again with my buddies through the miracle of computer phone, Chuck.
Hey now.
The alliteration's on the end there, Keith. You just got to wait till the end to get the...
Yeah. Pandemic. Yeah, that was take two. I got the name of the pod. Last week I said I had sheer panic that I was going to say the name of the podcast wrong. I said the name of the podcast wrong. That was take two. Anyway, gentlemen, hope we're doing well for the video feed if it works out this time. Chuck and I are wearing the same thing. Chuck is wearing our All Heart Grit Grind Stolen Grizz logo t-shirt.
Gang, gang.
I'm wearing the hoodie version off of TeePublic. We were gently advised to stop selling them.
By who?
But not. They reached out. The Grizzlies reached out through channels to say, hey, maybe don't do it.
Did we get the C&D?
But we did not get an official cease and desist. We did not get anything with a letterhead. We did not get anything in writing. We had, a friend of the program gave us like a little heads up, and we were like, all right, cool. It's fine. We don't need this right now. But if things get worse and we need money, we're going to sell them again. And they're going to have to write up. They're going to have to pay their lawyer to write that letter.
Let's work something out. They don't have to pay them. They're already on retainer. We are going to have to pay somebody.
We don't get that CD. We tell them CDs.
We're willing to work out.
Paper.
We're willing to work out. If you want to license our design,
right,
we can work it out.
We own the words. We don't own the words grit and grind, but we own the word grit grind.
We do own the word grit grind, and we own this way we've written it. Let's work something out. Have your people talk to our people. We'll work something out. I think
this isn't going to end well for us.
No, they have bigger problems. They're not coming after us. I mean, honestly,
they have drying up income streams. They will come after us.
If they wanted an income stream, they could license this shirt right here. Or they could put for sale some Vancouver Grizzlies throwbacks, which they do own the license to.
That part.
And refuse to sell them.
Don't let us run your franchise, Memphis. We might make you money.
It's not good. Anyway, how are you guys doing? Pandemic, stay at home. What are we on, like day 28? I'm on day 28 of what I told myself would be 75, even knowing 75 might be on the short end. But how are we doing? Chuck, you're shaking your head.
Stop counting days. You only do two days. No way. I'll say it.
Nope. That isn't helpful to me at all.
I can only stay in today. Tomorrow is a dream.
You do the day you go in and the day you go out.
That's it.
That might work. I'm wrestling children every day. I needed a number. Where I'm like, I'm going to do this 75 times. And if
you only have 12 more days to build an arc.
So. Yeah. If I can't, after 75 days, if I can't leave and do normal stuff, I'm fine to reframe then. But right now, I need something to count.
Yeah, see, but this is where you're setting yourself up for disappointment, and you're creating an expectation by putting a number out there, and that expectation can come back to weigh you down. So I would suggest you just have an open mind and say whatever 2025. That's when we'll be back to normal.
You say expectation, I say achievement. I'm going to say I hit 75 days. I'm going to be fired up, and then it's like, oh, what's the next challenge? I'm going to get my Xbox gamer points for getting 75 days in the hole with the children.
The hole.
I feel
he's doing solitary with two kids.
Singing it like Tom Waits.
I have two of the sweetest children.
They are so nice.
And I've never heard them speak.
I feel violent.
They are well-trained children. They never speak.
So let's get dark for a second.
Please.
You want to think about how horrible this thing is going? Like, I'm not a violent person. My kids are awesome. I feel terrible about them. Like, for several hours of every day. Yeah. There are lots of children out there who probably stink baseline.
Yeah.
And maybe their parents aren't as calm as I am baseline.
Yeah.
There's a world of hurt going on domestically across the country.
Well, this is why we got to work on how we process our emotions.
Yes, Chuck.
I'd rather Chuck just whoop me like he does his son than Keith pass aggro me.
First of all,
I'm just saying.
I've never laid hands on my son, despite the fact that he has.
Because your son is 4'9".
He's hit multiple women.
And he punched your aunt in the face or something.
Punched his aunt in the face, elbowed his teacher in the gut. My son is a violent kid, but I've never touched him. I've never done anything but give him pure and unfiltered love and emotional support. I'm trying to teach him to deal with his emotions.
Spare the Rod Strickland.
That's right. Just spoil the
Rodney Hood.
You spoil the child, Chris Child.
Rodney Hood expected to be back with the Blazers.
Spare
I'm getting into the basketball talk.
Spoil the Chris Child. So I think I told you guys before on the show years ago that actually a good disciplinary measure for my son, who's now 5, was I would threaten to throw a toy away because he had toys he loved, and I would do it, and then I would feel like it was cruel, like it was like a White House House down.
You, a Pixar defender, throw away a living toy?
I'm not so much
after showing your child not 1, not 2, but 3 of those horrid films, they think those toys are alive.
They've only seen 2 of them, but I would tell him like, hey, like get in your bed or I'm throwing this toy away. And I felt like a terrorist threatening the life of like the it was that Angel Has Fallen thing. We're like, Mr. President, I'm gonna execute some people if you don't do this. But anyway, so my youngest, my daughter.
You need to develop a persona where when you step into the room and you stand in the corner looking like Robert Mitchum, that they just wilt. That's what you do. Don't break it down with Randy Newman songs.
I can't.
Enter a room, tattoo love and death on your.
So my wife is working like upstairs, where like she's just staying away. And like yesterday we were doing baths and the youngest one was just screaming and screaming. And my wife texts like, do you need help? And I'm like doing the bath. I don't text her back. And she comes down and like the little girl's just screaming. And I'm now in the position where I'm like to my wife, I'm like, no, you can't pick her up and console her. Like, that's not fair. But like I will pick her up and console her when it's time. If I have to do all the discipline, I also get to console. You can't come in and console. It's rough.
She can't back clean up.
Right.
I have a similar issue with countertops and cats.
Yeah.
And the issue has gotten far worse, and it's basically my partner's fault. Because we now have a cat that there's about a 2 to 3 foot table where the cats are fed, just tall enough to where our decrepit dogs can't get to their food. But now one of the cats demands to be placed on the table. Yeah. And Allie places the cat on the table. I don't want to place the cat on the table. Do you know why? Because I know the cats can get on the counter. Right. And the counter is like 4 feet tall. And I see them, and she refuses to yell at them when they get on the counter. So I've just lost this battle to where I now stoop up. I basically am at the whim, the beck and call of these horrific pussy cats. Well, so all because they didn't follow your parenting advice.
Well, have you tried Walmart meat? They might jump up there for that.
Well, so I think, John, I have a similar problem you have with the cats. There's nothing you can threaten a cat with. Like, you can threaten them, but they're like, whatever. You can't do anything to me. And that's how it is. So, like, I could threaten my 5-year-old. I could throw a toy away. The 2-year-old cares about nothing.
Yes.
No.
I could be like, I'm going to throw this away. And
they're nihilists.
Like, 2-year-old is Rorschach from The Watchmen. She's nothing.
Like, yeah. She's like, do anything. see if I care.
I dare you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, my parenting style revolves around
lies.
No, telling my child the truth and explaining emotional intelligence to as best I can to a 6-year-old.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
I think it's the long game, but it will pay dividends one day when he stops getting suspended in the 1st grade.
I got terrible news for you. I don't remember jack or crap from my 6-year-old days, and Jack left town.
Right.
I don't remember any of this.
But all of that is
a persona that steps into the corner of a room when things get too rowdy, and then suddenly a hush falls over the room.
No, I'm not taking parenting advice from you ever. Sorry. Also, your cat will eat when it's hungry. It will jump up there eventually. Wait till
I've caught it jumping up there, and it looks back, and it's like, I can't get up there. I was thinking about it. I can't do it.
Well, breakfast,
I
guys.
find it hanging from a basketball hoop.
Should we talk about breakfast? What have you guys had for breakfast?
I had ramen noodles.
It's pretty good. It's not bad.
Yeah, I put a little curry powder in it, some Thai curry powder. I put some fish oil in it. It's fish sauce, not fish oil, not like omega-3s. Fish sauce, a little bit of soy. I don't use all the packets. I do 3 ramen packets, but I don't put all the seasoning in it.
You're talking straight 15 cents a pack from Kroger.
MSG, baby.
Yeah.
Ramen packs, yeah.
Yeah, so I put the fish sauce in there, a little curry powder, a little soy, a little rice vinegar, and one of the 3 packets, and I mix it up, and it's good to go. You're talking
you ever tried
good
putting
money.
some Ortega, like Mexican spice in there?
I actually got I actually got a pack of taco sauce from an Ortega pack. Yeah, I got it at my friend's house the other day.
If you can't get Taco Bell mild sauce, that is the best sauce in the world.
It is really good.
It's in a white pouch. Horrifying. Looks like food from Repo Man. You just cut the top. It immediately starts oozing out. You don't know where you're supposed. There's not a tearaway part. But I mean, if you pour that in beans while you're making beans, there's some kind of magic. There's an alchemical thing going on.
John, what was your breakfast?
I believe it was prominently displayed on our gram, as they call it.
Oh, I forgot to put it up.
I tried the East Park donuts that you boys
Oh, friend of the show. I'll go ahead and say it. Personal friend of mine, East Park Donuts. Love that place.
Yeah. So I tripled down. I think like a half dozen were ordered, which was probably like $62. But so I got I tried the brown butter. What was the rest of it? It's brown butter what, Chuck? Brown butter.
Salt, right?
It's brown
salted
butter.
brown butter.
Yeah.
One with the classic sour cream cake donut. The only cake donut I really like. And then the glazed brioche.
Yeah. I had that the other day. Ooh.
I'm worried I'm going to get taken to school here, but I thought they were all too sweet.
You're out of your mind. What's
really?
wrong with you? Yeah.
There was like too much sweet and not enough salty on the brown butter brioche. And then the other ones just seemed really sweet too.
It's perfect.
But also because it's like brioche instead of regular donut, is that making it sweeter? I don't know.
You're asking the wrong guy.
Is the lack of sugar, lack of sweetness in my life coming back to get me?
Brioche isn't specifically sweeter. The other ones are cake donuts, which are sweeter. So the brioche.
I only got one cake donut because I'm just not a cake donut guy.
Yeah, you're out of your mind. That place is perfect. They have perfectly balanced donuts, wonderful brioche, fluffy flakiness. The cake donuts are incredible. I had the other day, they had tiger stripe donuts. They called them Dough Exotic. And I also put a picture of John up on Instagram and called him Dough Exotic too. So that's where I got him.
I saw that on Instagram. I was very proud of that. But it also, knowing you didn't think it up makes more sense to me now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm like oh.
Well, here's how like any kind of visual joke with Chuck goes. Chuck sends it to us. Keith asks, "Did you come up with that? Can I post it?" And then Chuck's like, "Oh no, that came off of Reddit."
Look, I'm an aggregator. There's a whole community of us. We exist for a reason. You know, this is our content creation. The rest is a ploy to get you to listen to the show.
So I'm trying to think of my breakfast. I feel like I failed again. I don't think I had anything. I do have a gross story to fill it in though. So right now, actually, when I put these headsets on, I was worried that everything was panned to the right, and then I've forgotten. I've lost basically hearing in one ear because I have this. It turns out I have like a complete wax blockage of one of my ears.
Wow.
But it was really funny. So like the little girl goes, "There's something in your ear," and I was like, "What is it?" She's like, "There's something black in your ear." So I put my finger in my ear, and that sealed the tomb, and that like closed the wax ball over the ear, and I totally basically have like I don't have any hearing in my left ear, And this is just something that happens, I'll say, to 40-year-olds, so it's cool.
This is one of the most foul stories ever shared on the show.
Oh my God.
Very gross. But here's the thing. So as I've been saying, I've been stuck at home for 28 days with children around the clock. I feel like losing hearing in one ear is like a mutant ability. I feel like my body under extreme stress just shut off. It just shut off one of my ears, and I have this miracle solution.
Kevin Costner developed gills in Waterworld.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think my body's adapting. My wife does not think my body's adapting.
No, she thinks that you lack proper hygiene.
She thinks your ear smells. She thinks you need ear candling. A power listener, Jamie Holland, once went in for what he thought was a blockage. It was a roach.
Oh.
Do you know that story, Keith?
I don't.
That's a deep cut.
That's a good one. I've had a doctor before yank a wax ball out of my ear, and it was a thing I would pay lots of money for if you could do it for me all the time. It was like they stuck a hook in. It was like 8 seconds of extreme
you're like
pain.
one of those zip popper people.
Yeah, and so like it popped out, and when it popped out, like you could hear the air rushing back into the head, and everything was like super loud, and it was exhilarating. And I would legit, I would pay $100 for that to happen to me right now. And I would probably do it once a week. I would pay $100 once a week.
You can buy earwax removal kits, like specialty ones with hooks, at Walgreens.
No, I've been doing. You put the Debrox in there, and it softens everything. And then there's a little scoop you can get, and you scoop it out. And I'll be real.
I subscribe to this podcast?
This is like this might be like my kink.
You know, yes.
This is all I want.
Look, John, don't yuck his yum, okay? It's his personal story.
My yum.
We have established kink shaming is John's kink, so
that's absolutely true.
It's okay. All right, so those were our breakfasts. After our breakfast, we move to our breakfast in bed apologies. This is our chance to make right what we might have gotten wrong on any previous episode. It's often the first time we talk about basketball, which this show is sometimes about or used to be about. Anyway, does anyone have anything that they need to apologize for?
Well, my apology goes deep.
Yes, John.
It breaks down pretty much how horrible we are and how horrible our show is. So last week, as we're trying to figure out who's got our best and worst, Chuck clearly says that his worst is going to be Bosch being snubbed by the Hall of Fame. And when we get to it, when Chuck doesn't say that as his worst, I realize I either don't have a worst or my worst is so bad that I don't want to share it, that I just kind of siphon off Chuck's secondary worst. So then I start talking about Chris Bosch not getting in the Hall of Fame. And then Keith summarily slaps down from on high, kind of like the perfect and only spike Hall of Fame Dikembe Mutombo SWAT for power forward, which was Chris Webber. Because I still stand by the Bosch argument, but you can't argue when Chris Webber is in there. It's like the perfect nullifying argument. And then Chuck, as soon as we're done, texts that Chris Bosch was snubbed from the Hall of Fame February 14th, 2020.
A month ago.
Well, so Chuck was mad because they announced the Hall of Fame. All the people making the Hall of Fame. He was mad Bosch was left out and went on a tear. And I again was trying to explain, one, I don't pay attention to the Hall of Fame and I'm very ignorant about how it all works. And we were talking about how maybe they jumped the line and they moved things up for Kobe. And I was trying to find out, once our show was over, I just was like, I need to find out exactly what the Hall of Fame rules were. Did they move people up? Because I was confused because Duncan and Kobe retired at the same time. And that's when I was trying to Google, when did Chris Bosch get snubbed? And I'm like, oh, this happened months ago. This isn't even news that we were talking about. But
right. Well, that just shows you that I'm only angry at Kevin Garnett getting in and not Chris Bosch not getting in. That's really the truth.
I have been thinking maybe in this hiatus of basketball, maybe that'll be my thing. Maybe I'll get real into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Maybe I'll be ready to have conversations like Chris Webber's a 5-time All-NBA power forward. Chris Bosch was only a 1-time All-NBA forward, despite his 11 All-Star appearances. The diluted East, I don't think he gets in, even though he's going to get in.
He's gonna get in next year.
Marc Gasol has twice as many All-NBA teams as Chris Bosh.
This is true.
But I don't.
But that's the same argument on the other foot.
Yeah.
When you look at the All-NBA and All-Star appearances, you can really massage that into any argument you want. You can really start playing with that. That is builder's clay right there, boys.
Yeah.
If you need to find something to tear down or build up, look into those appearances. The appearances are a valuable weapon.
It is hard to fake an All-NBA team.
Right.
Only 15 guys. You have some that are softer than others, but it's hard to fake an All-NBA team. Center get to cheat a little bit.
Yes.
Sometimes you're like,
to the point where they may just get rid of it as a position.
Yeah, you're like, oh, DeAndre Jordan was All-NBA? That's kind of weird. But anyway, my apology. We were talking, again, maybe 2 shows ago now, about, maybe it was just last week, about teams that were most hurt by the season being suspended and most hurt by if the season is going to be totally suspended. And one team none of us said that I think is going to be very hurt is the Utah Jazz, because like these other teams that we say spent a lot, like the Lakers and the Clippers, on this season, the Jazz, we know they traded 2 first-round picks for Mike Conley. They traded 2 second-round picks for Jordan Clarkson. They were basically all in on this season. No, they weren't title favorites. They weren't even favorites to get to the conference finals, but they did spend a lot of resources just for this season, and maybe Mike Conley can leave next year, and so they were all in. And also, their team
I thought you meant they were most hurt by it because they caused it.
That too. And maybe it's going to cause a rift between their 2 All-Stars, but we'll get to that later in the show. Chuck, did you have an apology you needed to make?
Yeah, in our Spoonerisms last week, I was trying to make, we were trying to come up with as many as we could, but we missed. There were some glaring omissions. Piss Crawl is one of them.
Piss Crawl was the best one.
That's
the best.
Piss Crawl. Look, Bropez. It could be like a statement. Look, Bropez.
I apologize for never really, and still to this day, not understanding what is or isn't a spooner.
I got to that. Look, Bropez just needs to be a phrase we say.
That's probably
like that. That's like, hey, bro. If we were like, hey, bro, or like, slow down, bro. We're just, hey.
That's like if you're not in the whole brevity thing, you look Bropez them.
Yeah.
But the most glaring and most tragic miss of ours last week was Granny Danger. That's for sure the one I regret mostly.
I got close.
You did, Granny Dean.
Granny Dean is good. Granny Danger, that might be the best one in NBA history. Maybe there's others. I mean, obviously, if you're out there, if you're thinking of others, you know of others, let us know. But Granny Danger, that cracks me.
It's my job to bring the yucks, and I failed on a couple of them.
That's fine. All right, so those were our breakfast in bed apologies. Before we move on to the rest of our show, we have a few listener submitted questions. The croissant questionnaire.
I got it. Monte World Peace asks, if we had invested in Dinwiddie's contract, hold on, we gotta move things. If we had invested in Dinwiddie's contract, would we have lost money? He puts in parenthetical ellipses properly. I suspect Keith has.
No, I'm sorry. That's the stage direction, John.
Oh, got you. My bad. I'll exit stage left.
No, the question was, if we had invested in Spencer Dinwiddie's contract, would we have lost money? This is something I was thinking of. We're talking about on our Slack chat. It felt like the most secure investment ever is investing in an NBA contract outside of a cataclysmic disaster. The NBA guys are going to get their money. Well, it turns out that's what happened. But lo and behold, if the NBA had allowed us to invest in Spencer Dinwiddie, the Dinwiddie coin, or whatever his investment vehicle was going to be called. My understanding was it wasn't for this season anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered this season. We would be buying in for next season and the following 2 seasons. And he was going to put, I think, $9 million of his earnings per year. Like, he was going to sell that off where you can invest in that. And he was going to pay a very meager return on that investment. So like you could buy in for $150,000. That was one of his units or tokens.
Units.
Thank you. Tokens. And that was only going to pay, I think, 2.5% return. But then the big return would have been in year 3, where he was going to either pay. I don't know. I don't know much about investing because I don't come from means, and I'm nouveau middle class.
You didn't get the secret handshake.
Right. I don't have the secret handshake.
You weren't a member of the Skulls.
I don't even have a Robinhood app on my phone. No, but the in year 3, if he would have opted out and signed a bigger contract, then you could have had maybe a bigger chance of return, maybe a rate of return on your total investment would have been around like 8 to 10%. So that's the long answer. As long as the NBA plays its next 2 seasons regularly, no, you would not have lost money if you were allowed to invest in Spencer Dinwiddie. And as long as he didn't get horribly injured and then they waived and stretched him, that's basically the only way you could have not come out ahead on this venture. Again, huge caveat, as best an unemployed piano player and podcaster can explain it. So,
great question, Monte.
Good question.
If the Bitwitties fail,
yeah,
can we expect a government bailout, or do you have to own some sort of cruise liner to get such a thing?
Yeah, you have to provide a service that helps no one to get a bailout.
Got to be professional wrestling or a cruise liner, I think.
Right. So
those are the essential businesses we can get behind. Not the mail. Karl Malone would never get a bailout. He would never get a bailout. It just never happened. All right, guys, I'm going to ask this question, and then I'm going to let my dog out. Hiroshima asks, if you could take any current head coach plus GM partnership to start a franchise, who would it be?
This easy answer, Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra. Next question.
Yeah, I would actually go with, I think.
Is it any? Do they have to be combined on the same team?
I think they have to be combined.
Okay.
I don't know if we can mix and match. That obviously makes it way different. I assumed we had to pick a current partnership. I'm going to go, despite the fact that I'm worried he's been given too much too soon, and I hate his appearance. I would go with Nick Nurse and Masai Ujiri. His facial hair bothers me. Hate it.
His branded hat.
The branded hat bothers me. Walking around with a guitar like a threat that I could play this at any moment is cruelty and terrorism. That's a form of political fascist terrorism, and I'm not for it. I mean, I guess so. I would do that.
I know it's worded that way, but let's take it in a place that's a lot more fun and just partner up any head coach and GM, because I think everyone's going to say the Masai Ujiri experience.
Well, I mean,
I feel like we all are.
I mean, I'm fine with the Brad Stevens, Danny Ainge, even though Danny Ainge hasn't really consummated any of the big trades that maybe they could have gotten him to a finish line. I'd be happy with that. There's a lot of there's no other ones that I would even consider. I don't think.
Well, the bloom is off the Popovich rose right now, but I still think that has to be top 3. There just aren't many options. Whereas,
but if we're starting, Pat Riley might only have a few years left.
Yeah.
Right.
Same with like Jerry West.
I think Doc Rivers, Jerry West is a great one, even though Jerry West isn't technically the main guy. I'm not. I feel like there's another.
He's a shadow government. Come on.
Wrong there. Okay.
They brought him in to seal the deal with Kawhi, and then he went back into the shadows like Robert Duvall in the first 2 Godfather movies, at least, until suddenly replaced by the Steve Ballmer that is who replaces Robert Duvall in Godfather 3? It's somebody insane. It's like George Hamilton. Which is
right. Yeah, I've only seen that once. I don't remember it very well.
That's one too many, my friend. Hiroshima also asks, and what player under 22, not named Trey, Luka, or Zion, would you choose to start said franchise with? I feel like there's, well, I love that you said Ja Morant, but it's hard for me to pick Ja over Jason Tatum, who I think is still under 22.
No way.
I think so, right? Isn't Jason Tatum 22?
One of you guys Google it. My computer will break if I Google it while recording and doing video.
Jason Tatum's still 21.
So Jason Tatum, that works.
No, he's 22. He's 22. He just turned it on March 3rd.
Okay, well, I'm still then maybe it would be Ja Morant, because the only other ones that really spring, because if Tatum's 22, that means Bam is also 22, right?
Mm-hmm.
I should have looked this up to see if there's anyone we're definitely missing.
I like the jog. I think we've talked about him a lot in our patron only Slack lately, but SGA Shy is definitely only 21, I believe, and I feel like he's going to have quite a future ahead of him.
I don't think anyone in their right minds would take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander over John Morant if you were starting a
how old's Jamal Murray?
Scratch. Jamal Murray's too old. I'm looking at this like he's DeAndre Ayton is the only other okay one. I feel like that you might consider.
Not J. Jonah Jameson.
So yeah, Adebayo's 22. Yeah, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This is interesting. So you guys know that I actually watched every Shai Gilgeous-Alexander field goal attempt from this season.
Congrats.
I'm gonna actually. I think I'm gonna make this like Keith's curriculum for off-season just ridiculousness. So far,
no more case.
No.
Yeah, so far I've watched. I started with I didn't finish this one. I was watching Tony Allen steals from 2014-15, which is a delight. Then I watched every one of Javon Carter's field goal attempts from this season because I haven't said this in the show, have I? Javon Carter's mom, out of the blue, like ats me on Twitter.
Not out of the blue, Keith. You called her from the depths of the internet.
You were talking an enemy.
You talked bad about her baby.
Everyone
you Googled her ex.
Everyone was so in love with Javon Carter as a rookie, and I just kept staring at him, being like, "This guy is horrible. What are we talking about?" But anyway, so Javon Carter's mom is very online, and she just wanted to tell me like, "Hey, I hope you checked out Javon's second season," and like, I'd seen Javon do some things where I was like, "Hey, this is cool." He's like, he has a tiny role on the Suns. He does some things all right. So I went and watched every one of his shots from this year. He's bad. Like he's bad. He's really bad.
Watched every one of his. I guess that didn't take too long.
No, it's not
like
not
5-minute video.
Tell me it was like a supercut set to like pump up the jams.
No, but it's like you just go to stats.nba.com and you just click on his field goal attempts, and like this season he could hit a set shot 3-pointer, which is huge. If he could just hit a standstill 3-pointer, he has like a role in the NBA. But anytime he dribbles, he can't score. He has no moves at all. It's awful. So anyway, I watched that.
Who needs the fappening when Keith can just get to every Tony Allen shooting foul?
I watched
click of a button.
I watched every Shai Gilgeous-Alexander shot, and that took like over 2 hours. It was spread out over multiple days because that's like 900 shots. I think
dude can get to the rim. He can, at will.
He's super fun. Like anytime I started playing a game where every time I watched and if there was like a bad defender on him, I would just be like layup. Like I was trying to guess whether or not like he would score or not. But anyway, looking at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, that actually reminds me of a song. Dinklage, Peter Dinklage, Peter Dinklage, Peter Dinklage, Peter Dinklage. All right. Game of scones. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I actually did this wrong. His stats are very similar to Dennis Schroeder's as far as like very similar scoring numbers, very similar shooting numbers. I think they hit the exact same number of field goals this season. They both can get to the rim and score. They're both not great shooting 3-pointers, although Dennis Schroeder had a big jump.
Dennis Schroeder had a
3-point
pretty big jump this year in all his.
Oh yeah, so Schroeder had a great year. But anyway, this game of scones is about bench players. This a few weeks ago we didn't go over our 6 men of the year nominees or even argue about it because we don't really care.
Would have been Schroeder.
So Dennis Schroeder is probably the favorite for 6 man of the year. But this game of scones is name the players who average over 12 points per game off the bench. Pretty simple. The caveats are you had to come off the bench at least 30 times. So you have to be like a true bench player. And a note, this is only your scoring average in the games you came off the bench. So there's no big swaps. But anyway, this is just bench players who average over 12 points per game. Dennis Schroeder is the leading bench scorer at 19 points per game. All right, John, why don't you go first? First one to strike out loses.
Bench player.
Yep.
12 points per game, bench player. I feel like I'm going to get murdered on this one. I feel like maybe he didn't start. Did Colin Sexton start? I'm going Colin Sexton.
Colin Sexton mainly started. So
oh, dang it.
Strike for John, digging deep.
Going with my wheelhouse. Let's go with the Dragon, Goran.
Goran Dragic is correct. 16.1 points per game off the bench.
Well done. You went with your home team. It makes me want to go with my home team, but that would be a trap. Does Norman Powell count as a bench player, or is he a starter? Going Norman Powell.
He is not. I don't think he came off the bench 30 games. I don't think he counted enough because of injuries and having to start several times. That's gonna be another strike for John. High scoring bench players.
Lou Williams.
Lou Williams is correct. 17.8 points per game.
Six
Lou
man
Williams,
like Lou.
who I like to point out is better than D'Angelo Russell. John, do better. You're on the brink of elimination.
I'm going down in flames. Because I wanted to say Devontae Graham. He definitely started. I'll go with Lonzo Ball. He didn't average 12 points. I'm out.
I think he starts like every game. Here's a hint.
I got to let this dog in.
Okay, yeah, there's a dog barking in John's who has embarrassingly struck out. Chuck, would you like to win with style?
What about Marcus Smart?
Marcus Smart, no. He does not fulfill
he starts too many games.
Requirements. I don't think he averages even. Again, I can't Google right now because my computer's CPU is overwhelmed. No. I'm really embarrassed by John's performance. Let's say there's obviously Montrezl Harrell.
Oh,
18 points per game off the bench. Derrick Rose on the Pistons. Maybe I'm gonna wait till John.
Podcasting in pandemic times. Sorry, boys, for my performance. But at least now I have a good excuse.
All right, so John, the ones we missed: Montrezl Harrell, 18.4 points per game. Very easy and obvious. Derrick Rose, 17.9 points per game. Our man Davis Bertans, 15.4. Jordan Clarkson, 15.1. Terrence Ross, 14.8. Bogdan Bogdanovic, who came off the bench the first 33 games, 14.5. Alec Burks, 14 points. Kobe White, Tyler Hero, Brandon Clark on your Grizzlies, and Seth Curry. That's all the players who averaged over 12 points per game coming off the bench. So congratulations, Chuck. Nice win there. That was all out of, I believe, our croissant questionnaire. John, we have one more.
Feeling Minnesota asks, and this is going to be almost as painful as my Game of Scones performance. If you had to select an existing Disney character to play a Disney-fied version of you in a Pixar Fastbreak Breakfast NBA podcast movie, which Disney character would you pick? Chuck.
I'm not going to pick me. I'll pick you. John's the fat kid from Up.
Wrong again, Chuck. I am clearly Ursula from The Little Mermaid.
Wow.
You poor unfortunate souls.
I would pay money to see that costume.
Yeah. If I had to pick one, I'm going with the Mr. Potato Head from Toy Story. Cliff Clavin. What's his name? John Ratzenberger?
Yeah.
That works for me. He's a little odd. He's a little weird. He wears his emotions on his face.
He's bald.
He's fat. He's bald. Look, he can do any number of weird things with his eyes, mouth, and nose. It's me.
Similarly, I feel like Keith has to be Woody from Toy Story.
I have been called Woody more than once in my life.
He's very gangly.
The way I gangly and saunter about with
there is a snake in your boot.
There's a snake in my boot. I was going to say, actually, my son's favorite character from The Lion King, which was disturbingly Scar. I feel like I'm hoping one day, maybe 20 years, I have like a Jeremy Irons look to me when I get.
Here's the issue with Scar.
Weather. Yeah.
Is your voice can't come out of Scar's mouth.
Oh, that's so true.
Jeremy Irons, smooth, lean, and hungry.
Yeah.
That's just not gonna work.
Then I will be Timon.
Okay.
I think
Chuck is definitely Pumbaa.
I'm Pumbaa.
yeah, Chuck is Pumbaa.
Yeah. That was the other one I could have gone with, Pumbaa. I could also went with the fat kid from Up 2, but whatever. I'm very ideological and clear-minded, but an idiot deep down inside.
All right. Well, those were our croissant questionnaires. If you have a question you want answered on air, you have to become a Patreon supporter. You do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you join us over there, you get access to exclusive bonus content, some bonus episodes, a few little extra videos, the Slack chat, and your question gets answered in the croissant questionnaire. Also on the Patreon only Millennial Brunch $500 croissant episode. So support the show. Patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. We're going to try out something new here. We were made aware of a story about Michael Jordan, who had a personal chef who would make him cinnamon rolls for breakfast, but Michael Jordan didn't want anyone else or any part of the help. Can I say the help here? He didn't want any part of the help to eat his leftover cinnamon rolls, so he would spit on them. That's the kind of man Michael Jordan was. So these are MJ's cinnamon roll spit takes. And I'm going to give us some topics, and then we're just going to maybe give our spit takes to them. The first topic is Jordan rules or Jordan drools. The Last Dance will be a transcendent, unifying cultural event that we all need desperately, or a weak cash grab, a 30 for 30 deification of a problematic human being. Chuck!
To clarify, The Last Dance is the upcoming Michael Jordan 10-part docuseries that's going to be airing soon.
About his last year in Chicago, but not his last year in the league where he destroyed his legacy forever. So before we start this process, we all must state unequivocally that Michael Jordan is one of the greatest champions in NBA history and has a fair and righteous claim to the greatest of all time. We can
never
all agree
won anything without Pippen. Keep going.
Yes, but we can all agree with that Michael Jordan. We're not claiming that he is a bad basketball player or he isn't an all-time great. This is not true. What we're trying to dig down deep into is how the darkness in this man kind of fueled his greatness, right? Like, he was one of the greatest players of all time, probably because he was one of the worst humans of all time, right? So in my head, there's no way this documentary is nothing other than some sort of like canonization. He will be crowned a saint after this. His fiery determination, his competitive spirit, his will to win, and all these dumb things that really are a byproduct of his sociopathic nature and ridiculous worldview and mindset. So I think we're going to see a deification. It isn't going to be textured. You're not going to find out anything bad about Michael Jordan. It's all going to be a fluff piece. And but it's still going to be amazing to watch, and I'm going to, eat it all up like popcorn.
Keith, your thoughts?
Well, my part of like, I guess if it's the hipster in me or the contrarian in me, like I do want to sort of entertain. I know everyone says Michael Jordan is the greatest ever, but like I don't have that knowledge for myself. Like I saw him growing up. I think my first memory of him is in the 1990 playoffs, and they lose to the Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I watched for the next 3 years, but again, only in the playoffs. Like I didn't see his games during the regular season ever. I was 12, 13, 14 years old during that. I always cheered against him.
Right.
And so he did seem like the best player ever. Since we've started doing this podcast and I've gotten really into like looking up just, random stats on Basketball Reference, his numbers always come up where it's always like, wow, he had a game where he had 50 points and 15 rebounds and 12. It's like he always has these incredible numbers and he has these amazing shooting seasons, but like they didn't win a bunch of games a lot of times when he was doing this. So I like to just keep an open mind whether I don't know if he's the best ever. As far as this, I assume he is. Like, I'm taking everyone's word for it. Like, I can vouch for LeBron James because I've seen him play hundreds of times, and like despite there being different players, so like I don't know. I don't turn my nose up to any like greatest of all time argument if someone says LeBron James or even Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or something. Like I don't know. Like I don't have enough knowledge. But as far as like this thing, I will say as far as this documentary, I am nervous that it's going to be like kind of low grade 30 for 30. Like, well, this is fine, but it's talking heads. Like what I'm going to be watching for and what's going to take this from Jordan Drools to Jordan Rules for me is if they have a lot of firsthand video and like footage from back in the day. Like if you show me back in the day video of him saying horrible expletives to players in practice or like
not going to happen.
You can't say a lot of what he said.
No. You can bleep it. It's been in books. I've read the things he said to Kwame Brown.
You can't bleep what he said to Stacey King. That's not getting shown.
Right. No. So I guess my hope is it is kind of an unfiltered, raw look. But I do worry it's going to be like a very prepackaged, like ESPN production where I'm like, it doesn't excite me.
Let me ask you this, Chuck. Can it be both? Because I feel like it could be both.
It's not.
I think
either
it could very easily. Because I mean, we just did a whole episode about Tiger King.
Yeah.
Deification of a person much worse than Michael Jordan, probably.
Well,
he wasn't deified, though.
I feel like this can be a transcendent unifying cultural event that deifies a guy who may not be the best dude, but I mean, Keith may not have seen a whole lot of his career, and I saw as much as Keith did, maybe even less, but you can go back and look at the numbers, and it's almost impossible to deny a guy. Yeah. I mean, he would put up advanced stats that rivaled Wilt's, 50 points a game season in a more modern game. So it's hard to argue with it. And I'm hoping to piggyback on what Keith said that it looks like the footage is a lot of what you were like, a lot of not just anecdotal talking head stuff, but actual in game. It looks, the way they're putting it looks like mic'd up sessions, So I'm hoping it'll be something like that. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Chuck, why don't you read the next one? Or Keith, why don't you read the next one? I'm going to let in another awful creature.
I was going to say, the one thing about Michael Jordan that like I don't feel like anyone ever or like doesn't get talked about enough for me in the like the greatest of all time argument is how like they were a 55-win team. Is at the end of the first three-peat. No wait, yeah, and then the first year without him. Like they won 47 games without him. So like I feel like a lot of times we forget that when there was no Michael Jordan, like the team still won 47 games. And so like he was very good. I actually want to, before we move to the next question, I'm curious, what are like John and Chuck, like what are y'all's memories of, or like what's your first memory of Michael Jordan? Or what do you remember the most about him from his playing career?
Well, my first basketball memory is a Sports Illustrated cover with Jordan and Magic on the front page or on the cover of it, and it was that Lakers Bulls first finals for Jordan, last finals for Magic, and seeing I don't remember watching any of those games. My big memories start around Hakeem's finals runs. As far as watching basketball goes. But, his final three, it seemed like, once the final started, it just seemed like they were going to win no matter what.
He was the hateful Old Testament God of my youth.
Yeah.
And that's really the only way to put it for me.
Yeah. And same with me, like my hope in, as a Heat fan started with Pat Riley, started with Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway, and I knew there was no way we were beating them. And it was anger-inducing. It made, because there were all these bandwagon fans, or people who were like basketball fans, but they're in the 6th grade and they're Jordan fans.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm rooting for this team, and this guy's just coming through, and no matter what, destroying us with just sheer will and skill. So yeah,
it's funny, I was the like careers and like long lasting memories I'll have of players like Cliff Robinson and Dan Marley that that they probably don't deserve, but it's only because they were a foil to Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And that's really the only reason at all.
That's a great thought, John. I hadn't considered that because like Cliff Robinson was one of my favorite players, and like I was a Pistons fan, and then I was kind of like a Suns fan, and it sounds like all three of us cheered against Michael Jordan. Like we were always cheering against Michael Jordan. I didn't cheer for the Jazz. I did find the Jazz more distasteful at the very end. But that's really interesting. Yeah, that's kind of.
I rooted hard for the Sonics that year that they played Jordan. That was, Sean Kemp was when I had Sean Kemp sneakers. I was a huge Sean Kemp fan. And yeah, it was just heartbreaking to know it was fait accompli. He walked on the court. He was going to win that season.
I wore Jeff Hornacek's number because of Michael Jordan.
That's really funny. You say fait accompli, but I do feel like sometimes we forget. It at least felt like to me, and I haven't rewatched the series or anything, but it felt like to me there's like if there's a couple bounces the other way, like the Pacers and the Knicks both had a chance. Like there were series where it felt like Jordan, like the Bulls could have lost, but obviously they didn't, and so it comes off like this guy seemed invincible.
If Charles Smith pump fakes one time, one time.
That's right. And also, I misspoke earlier. The year after Michael Jordan, after the first three-peat when Michael Jordan retired, the Bulls won 55 games without him. Right. So I feel like sometimes we gloss over that in the greatest of all time argument because Michael Jordan was probably just Devin Booker in the triangle offense.
Like it's crazy that and there's like a series of guys. The story fits so perfectly for any like super Jordan argument positor because you can just be like, well, the one year that he didn't play, they didn't win it.
Right.
That's right.
It's just like the Tom Brady argument, like when Tom Brady got hurt, they didn't make the playoffs. They went 11-5.
Yeah.
With Matt Castle. I mean, these were good teams, and really, I think that speaks more. And I'm hoping that this is part of the documentary as well. I'm hoping we get to see Scottie Pippen in the limelight a little bit again.
And I hope for my sake they talk about the length and girth of Scottie Pippen's penis.
or his tipping practices. And I do think there is going to be, you talked about when you made these questions up, Keith, you talked about the cultural notion of it. I think there will be a swing back in the GOAT argument, a swing back, because I feel like LeBron started to take the lead a little bit. And I think the recency bias will be as such that this 10-part documentary will bring another like Jordan-assance into this. And we'll start talking about him as the greatest with no question. So I think it could have some significance.
I mean, in a real sense, though, Jordan played in the expansion era with with a few bad teams. Those 72 wins could have an asterisk if you want to be weirdly whatever analytical. There's modern NBA defenses are different now. They are built to stop the isolation game that Jordan thrived off of. So there are
he played against hand checking, and I mean,
but I feel like even that we now have like the whole heliocentric offenses where like Doncic is putting up 27, 10, and 9. I think Jordan would have done even more stats wise.
This was during a time when teams were trying to slog the game down.
Yeah,
and he still was getting his.
Let's move to our next cinnamon roll spit take topic. It is Gobert or Goober. The trouble between the Jazz new All-Stars is an irreparable fault line running through the organization or the invention of a bored media. What say you, John? Have Gobert and Mitchell, do they have real problems, or are we just bored and making up stuff?
I would say that they have real problems. I feel like it's very easy for that situation. I mean, we've seen teams fall apart for far less than giving someone a potentially fatal virus.
Right. blatantly. So,
and the way that it happened, and, do I think it's kind of, from a distance, it feels ridiculous, but apparently they just spoke for the first time a mere 2 days ago. I mean, I feel like if things were okay, the salutations and the sorries would have been exchanged long ago. So I mean, I feel like it's a real rift and could lead to us not having to watch the Jazz as closely anymore, which would be wonderful.
Yeah. But I think what is lost in all this is Rudy Gobert's ability as a defensive stopper. He stopped the entire league from playing basketball.
Oh,
That's
So
right.
that's defensive player of the year, hands down.
He's protected like somewhere around, I don't know how many million rims are in the U.S. All the rims have been taken down. No, so the next question, I guess for you guys, if the Jazz have to trade one, who would you guys trade?
I guess,
it's strange because go ahead, Chuck.
No, I mean, center's not as, that's an easier position to fill, I would assume, than, somebody who can score like Donovan Mitchell on the wing. I'm not certain of the value of a defensive stopper or center, having to pay them a lot of money in the modern NBA. So I would go with Gobert.
Let me ask you your goal, Keith. Are you trying to win 55 games, or are you trying to win a championship? Do you want to win 55 games every year over and over and over again? Because you can build around a guy like Gobert.
Have the Jazz even won 55 games with Gobert? But I guess I'm being facetious. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like Gobert is like the better build around, but Mitchell is like, Mitchell's the type of guy, he could be the second best player on a championship team. He could be a guy who goes to another team and that instantly puts them over the top. Gobert is more like a build around piece. I think they're both valuable type players. I think Gobert's, the way you can play around him in the playoffs is kind of stifling for him and for an argument for him. But I would go with Mitchell, honestly.
But like the argument against keeping Gobert is that he's been played off the court in the playoffs, and like his on-off numbers, and again they're all very small sample sizes because you only have a few games to go.
It's multiple years where he's been a non-entity.
But yeah, like the team has done better with him off the court in the playoffs. But yeah, is he just like a floor raiser where like if you have him every year on your team, you're going to win 45, 47, 48 games? Like, is Donovan Mitchell's success, is it because he has this constant backstop behind him and he's free to do whatever he can do? Like, Donovan Mitchell's not exactly efficient. I mean, my answer in this, basically when it comes down to like which player would you keep, I'm always going to default to the one that has the ball in his hands the most. Right. And I do feel like what Chuck said, Gobert's making a ton of money, paying an all defensive center who is legit, he's one of the best centers in the league, in the world. But you could find guys who could do like 80% or 90% maybe of what he does that don't cost 80% of what he makes.
Right.
And I was even trying to think of like, what is 80% of Donovan Mitchell? Like, I can't even think of who that is. There's such a dearth of shooting guards and guys who could score for teams. Like, I was wondering, here's another question. Like, would this Jazz team this season, do you think they would win more games if you replaced Gobert with like Jarrett Allen or Marc Gasol, or if you replaced Donovan Mitchell with like Will Barton or somebody? Like, which one of those mental exercise would you think wins more games?
Well, I feel like this Jazz team has barely functioned when Donovan Mitchell hasn't had the ball in his hands, so I would have to go that way. Even with a player who we knew to be as good as Mike Conley, when he was trying to be like the straw that stirred, Utah's iced tea, it just did not work. So I would say, as important as Gobert is on a regular season level, I would still take Mitchell over Gobert at this point. I just feel like Mitchell is probably asked to do too much, which probably leads to his, kind of less than ideal numbers sometimes. But there aren't a lot of players who can do what he does. And there are, I feel like you can build a stifling defense around more than one center in this league.
And you also, you don't have to have a stifling defense. Like, you could choose to have just an okay defense if you want. Yeah. Chuck, what do you think? Which team wins more in my hypothetical? Is it a replace with like a Jarrett Allen center and you still have
I'm
Mitchell,
on,
or replace Mitchell?
I'm on team having lived through the Hassan Whiteside era in Miami. I'm a familiar of the value of a shot blocking.
Are you saying Tony Bradley is Bam Adebayo?
But yeah, it's like I don't think the value of that position is such that you should pay max money unless you've got an Anthony Davis or Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid. Like, there's 3 centers I would pay a lot of money in the league, and maybe Cat, maybe Karl Anthony Towns. So like there's not, and those guys are scorers as far as I'm concerned, or offensive hubs and players that can kind of change the way you play defense. Gobert's not changing anybody's defensive strategy. They might have to adjust their offensive strategy, and I just don't think that's worth the paycheck.
Yeah, we're not even talking about like, do you build around the guard or the big man? We're talking about do you build around the guard or the pretty much one-dimensional big man? He does roll to the rim well and sometimes puts up some good offensive numbers, but he's not like a go-to scorer in any capacity at any time.
Yeah, it's just so confusing because like his advanced numbers are so good and they're so dominant with him on the court, and it paints him as like one of the most dominant players in the NBA.
Right.
And no one disagrees that he's like the top defender, the top center defender, probably him and Embiid.
Rolo!
It's tough. I also don't think I was trying to come up with trades you would make.
Rolo.
I don't like. With him making $26 million per year, I don't feel like they could even really trade him and get what they will feel the value is back. So I think the end of this longish exercise on the Jazz is they need to just make up.
I just think it's
bump elbows and make up, because you're not going to get value, I don't think. And I don't think you could trade Donovan Mitchell just for his popularity and how young he is. And this team is good. Like, if they stay together, they'll be a top 10 team for the next several years. So you probably just got to make up and, try to find another way to go forward.
My thing, too, big picture is, Donovan Mitchell said out loud he's angry at Gobert. This is like he's been quoted. And the media is kind of spinning it that, no, but the Jazz can still fix this. This can work out. Meanwhile, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are actively praising each other. And the media is like, oh, can these two players play together? Will they ever win? Like, it's so strange.
Funny is there's much more Sturm and Drang about the Sixers guys than the Jazz guys. When this is, as Chuck said, spilling out all over our chests.
Right.
That's just man. If Gobert and Mitchell were in Philadelphia, and I think that's just market. That's all that is.
Although this is some slow news day stuff.
Oh, I mean, no question. We just did 9 minutes on the Jazz.
Yeah, I mean, in a outbreakless episode, there's no way we're digging deeper into more interesting stuff.
Speaking of digging deep, our final topic in the Michael Jordan cinnamon roll spit takes: horse or whores?
Whores? Or is there a difference?
There's, as far as Chuck is concerned, there's no difference. Chuck, give us the first word.
Horse.
Give us the second.
He said it right.
Horse.
No, what's a lady
Horse.
of the night?
Horse.
And
Horse.
what canters?
Horse.
What is the play Equus about?
Horse.
He got it.
All right. The topic is the NBA's horse broadcast was a wholesome and entertaining contest that should be commended, or a desperate and embarrassing ploy for money.
All right. First of all, Chuck, you didn't watch it. Good for you.
I have read the recap. And I do know one thing, Paul, and this makes me super happy. Paul Pierce embarrassed himself.
Couldn't punch that opponent in the balls.
Got shut out.
Another postseason flop for the flopper. I mean, Chuck, you dodged a bullet, buddy. Keith, how much did you watch?
I watched a pretty good amount. I watched. I did not see the Paul Pierce match. Was he third or fourth?
Well, he was done because
I saw all of Trae Young and Chauncey Billups and was stunned at the presentation. I was stunned at like how bad Trae Young's goal was. It was short. It was wobbly. Like he was shooting jumpers when it was like shoot a 3-pointer, and he was shooting like elbow jumpers. You're like, that's not
14-footer.
It was so bizarre. So I don't like. On the one hand, I'm grateful they did this because I actually found it kind of entertaining, even though I didn't watch all of it. But I was confused. Like, it didn't seem like it was live, although they were making us watch what was essentially someone's Skype or like Instagram live broadcast. I didn't know why they couldn't film it with like actual HD cameras, and then, or at least an HD phone, and then send that.
Baby.
I was
seeing what happens when the worker bees go home, Keith.
Yeah,
I was confused how it was.
Boys, I watched every godforsaken minute of that. Every godforsaken minute of that, like Alex from A Clockwork Orange. I wasn't even trapped. I was trapped in my own home with partner I love, but I guess don't know enough to talk to. I'd rather watch horse. I don't know. I just had to. I had to watch basketball. I watched it. I watched it all. It did get there were some matchups that were okay. I gotta say, where am I inside the NBA crew on this? We gotta switch the presenters. We don't need Mark Jones in this trying
Mark Jones
time.
was fine. I mean, he was no NBA. Ronnie 2K on those 2K battles was one of the most horrific things they've ever put on television.
He's terrifying.
They're not going to let him present it, but Mark Jones is a professional presenter, but
he was a professional.
He doesn't have the rapport that Shaq and Charles would have brought up like pooping your pants jokes on Paul Pierce. And we needed levity more than ever. Say what you will about the Inside the NBA guys, but this is up there. I mean, this is when we needed the starters back, honestly.
We could have used the starters. Man, the most striking thing, I think you might have pointed it out, was just how like Mike Conley, who's never made an All-Star game, was playing in a castle.
Yeah.
And he was playing Tamika Catchings, who's Hall of Fame in the WNBA, and she was playing in just a residential suburban
on a concrete pad in her backyard.
Concrete backyard, and you're like, oh my god, like the wages.
That was a severe home court advantage since Mike Conley has a indoor gym at home.
Mike Conley, best performer, I thought, by the way.
No, he looked
ambidextrous. That helps you out a little bit.
Yeah, well, you can go both hands.
Ambidexterity is absolutely cheating in horse.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was smart about it too. He was like offhand.
Yeah, I didn't like how he was like
non-dominant.
One time
he said right hand. He was like, wait a minute. I mean offhand.
Yeah,
right,
he's like
lefty.
Dominant hand, non-dominant, but like he can shoot. He's like legit ambidextrous, almost at the 3-point line, which is a huge advantage.
Paul Pierce had like a sweet like pink pastel Michael Mann Scarface like cartel home, and then like Zach LaVine lives on like the Waco compound. It was bizarre. It was strange. But I mean, it was really, really terrible, but I will watch all of it going forward. So
were my production level expectations just too high? Is it too hard to like
mail a HD camera and give some instructions?
I mean, like I was watching a cooking channel
They're going to
show.
privatize the USPS, baby. There will be no mailing.
Yeah. I was watching a cooking channel show that you couldn't tell, like they were like, my daughters are filming this, and it looked exactly the same. But like maybe the time turnaround, it wasn't quick enough to like be able to upload a file to Dropbox and then to get the ESPN producers to put it together. Maybe that was too much. So maybe I'm expecting too much. But
I mean, maybe
lowered expectations.
Yeah, I mean it was some like Air Witch Jordan project nightmare. I mean, it would make you sick.
It really was the Blair Witch horse.
But I got through it.
Yeah, we did it. Okay, let's move to the awards segment of the program. The International Stackhouse of Pancakes. This is This Day in iShop History. All right, we have in 2005, April 15th, 2005, Austin Crozier went 0 for 12 from the field, 5 points, 15 rebounds, and a loss to the Sixers. But more importantly, on the same day, Damon Stoudemire in his final game as a Portland Trailblazer in a defeat to the Golden State Warriors, Damon was 6 for 25 from the field.
Oof.
And yes, he might have had a triple-double. But most importantly, he set the NBA record for missed three-pointers. He was 5 for 21 from downtown.
Save the day.
16 missed three-pointers, a record that James Harden has tied no less than 6 times. But this day in International Stackhouse of Pancakes history, April 15th, 2005, 15 years ago today, Damon Stoudemire, 5 for 21 from the field. No, 6 for 25 from the field, but an NBA record, 16 missed three-pointers, 5 for 21 from downtown. And I looked for this quote. I couldn't find it. Someone asked him how he set the record for most three-pointers attempted, because at that point it was the most attempts as well. And he said, I just got in a groove, and sometimes the game comes to you. So he's just kind of grooving. missing a bunch of threes.
This gives me an idea for when we have like a Harden watch when he's doing it again.
Yeah.
We got a new code phrase for it, kind of like Jacques watch. There's a mouse in the house.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say, look, Bropez.
Look, Bropez.
Look, Bropez, he's going for the record. Also, speaking of iShop, I read an article about our boy Joe Fulks, the grandfather of the iShop, a man who shot 28% for a season back in like the late 40s. It was pretty good. Spoiler, he was murdered by his daughter's boyfriend with a shotgun.
Oh.
Apparently, Joe Fulks was a raging alcoholic, so who's to say who was at fault?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm going to say the guy who shot him. I'm going to say the guy who shot him.
Usually.
Murder's not the answer.
Oh, the grim irony of the man who shot too much. Although
if we found out his daughter's boyfriend was like a 12-year-old and his daughter was 12, then you're like, oh, maybe, I don't know. I've seen movies. I have an imagination. The par fadeaway and or Danish distraction. What have you been distracting yourself and or what are you looking forward to in the coming indefinite amount of time, which we are trapped in?
Your boy Chuck has been learning how to sew, and you can't see. It's on my face now, but I'm making masks, baby. I got masks.
Brought me one.
I brought Burr one the other day.
It's better than the real ones.
Yeah. They're just, it's a fun project. I suck at it, but I like learning.
Mine was made from strippers' undergarments.
Yes, we used stripper underwear. What was yours?
I was kidding. Oh no.
No, it wasn't. They're fabric from a fabric store. But yeah, I gave John and his pregnant significant other a set of matching ET masks, which I'm not sure if they're,
Wait, you didn't take the mask you have of John Burr's face?
No.
And you didn't make an actual...
No, I have to wear that in certain...
You didn't want to get that metatextual.
No, I didn't want to do that. Also, I use that for role play sex work, so I don't want to ruin it.
John, what have you been distracting yourself with?
So, I didn't mention Inside the NBA just because I'm a TNT enthusiast. Tomorrow, well, is this coming? This will come out tomorrow. This will come out tonight.
I'm gonna drop this as soon as I get it done. I'll drop it.
Okay, well then tomorrow,
Thursday,
we're gonna try a stream of our own. We're gonna call NBA The Inside. Around the time the last Thursday night game on TNT goes down, Chuck and I will get on the streams and try to throw a little entertainment your way. Check the Twitter for more details. But we're gonna give it a test run tomorrow and see how it goes. It's been absolute torture trying to learn OBS because, as you all know, I am Uncle Grandma, and this stuff does go over my head, even more so when we can't get a peon like our beloved Rudyard to come over to the house and teach us how to do this stuff.
Rude.
But Chuck and I, we're learning. We tested some Xbox streaming today, and I gotta say, I wasn't ready for how seriously Chuck was gonna take these games.
Oh. Are you guys going to be playing some 2K?
Consternation and concentration as we played. Chuck went as silent. I mean, it was frightening.
I'm not good at video games, which is one of John's ploys, but I don't feel like if I'm bad at something, people should watch me do it. But I'm learning to grow in my own comfortable.
Why do you make porn, sir?
Well, I've got.
That's how silent he was, folks.
Yeah, I got no
silent
complaints.
as we played.
No complaints. But yeah, the evolution of my game could be something if you're interested in watching me be frustrated, angry, and John, while he is hyper competitive and super self-centered, isn't going to let up a little bit and will decide to crush my larynx at any given opportunity.
I was not ready for him to be as competitive as he was. I think it's going to be monitor this situation going forward. I think Chuck has a little Jordan in him.
Yeah.
My Danish distraction. I finished Loose Balls, an incredible book. Highly recommend for anyone. I watched The Scheme on HBO, a very fun firsthand account of a guy who.
Fun?
I guess. Do what?
Fun? I believe that poor man went to jail.
He hasn't gone to jail yet, but he's going
Okay.
to. No. It was an entertaining story. Between that and Tiger King and McMillions, I don't have a super high opinion of like federal stings right now. So maybe if you can send me like a fun story, like the McMillions guy was doing terrible things that was causing lots of harm, and they got him. That was fine. But it also felt like kind of silly the whole time.
Keith, have you ever seen King of Kong?
Oh yeah.
You seen King of Kong?
Yeah.
Now you can watch King of Kong again and know that Billy Mitchell, all of his scores, the villain Billy Mitchell from King of Kong, one of the great documentary villains, all his scores were faked. It's out. It's known. So now you know Steve Wiebe from King of Kong is the real King of Kong. How uplifting. There's your parfait.
That is pretty good. Also, I watched The Women of Troy, which is a documentary on HBO about Cheryl Miller and her teammates on the USC women's basketball team. And that show, it was good. It's only like an hour. Huge oversight, if you ask me. One of the main characters in it, Pamela McGee, it's JaVale McGee's mom.
Oh,
It's
wow.
not mentioned one time. I didn't know that until it was over. So it seems like they would have thrown that in. But anyway, so a lot of good basketball available documentaries and books to entertain yourself. Also, I'm going to watch all of Davis Bertan's three-pointers tonight. Maybe want to go to bed just for fun.
Keith.
Anyway,
Keith
Sure,
is an
you
insane
get yourself
person.
a spank. Use one of Chuck's masks as a spank if you'll be just
all right. If you guys want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/Fastbreak Breakfast. Follow us on Twitter, Fastbreak Break. Follow John, Master John Burr, Chuck, the Mighty Chuck. Check out the Instagram that Chuck runs, Fastbreak Break. You guys are the best. Thanks for listening. And remember, breakfast is the most important thing